Everyone has a story.
Hey, Steve.
Hello, Doug.
Stories have power.
Welcome to Taylor Cooperative.
They help us understand each other. This is Jessop's Journal.
Here is the sign-in book.
Wonderful.
What was your first job? We're talking like a paycheck, okay?
Yeah.
Do you remember what your first job was?
I was 13. I assembled bicycles at Lendrum Hardware about a block from my house. I worked for a little old guy who had one ear.
Really? One
Yeah.
year?
And actually he scared all the little kids because he had this missing ear.
Okay.
And I remember one day walking past the little hardware store, and I was thinking I should get a job. I was on my way to Safeway to apply for a job, and I thought, maybe I'll just stop in here. And the little old man said, yeah, got a job. He actually didn't expect anyone would ever come in and ask him for a job. So my first job was building bicycles. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
And where was this?
In Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, where I was born and raised. But I'm a U.S. citizen since 1996.
How did that come to be? I mean, why the U.S.?
As a kid growing up, I actually wanted a military career.
Okay.
And so, watching World War II movies, the heroes were always the Americans. And I actually joined the Royal Canadian Air Cadets as a young guy to begin my training towards a military career. My dad told me that when he was a young man, that the U.S. Army came through our hometown of Edmonton in the early years of World War II and built the Alaska Highway. So at that time, my dad met, for the first time, many other American kids his age.
Okay.
These were 18, 19-year-old soldiers,
Right.
with all the heavy equipment building the Alaska Highway. My dad told me, he said he thought they were the most interesting, fun, and hardworking people he'd ever met, and he always admired the Americans.
Okay.
So when I was about 14, we took a vacation to Spokane, Washington. First time I'd ever been out of Canada. We went to Fairchild Air Force Base, sat on the trunk lid of my dad's car watching the B-52s do touch and goes. And my dad said this to me, he said, if I'd had the opportunity, if it was up to me to be born an American or a Canadian, I would have chosen to be born an American because it's the greatest country that ever was. That stuck with me. And when I was 35 years old, I met a group of business people I'd been doing some business with out of Seattle. They invited me to join them to start a company in Seattle. And 5 years later, I had a green card, and 5 years after that, I became a U.S. citizen.
Yeah. Welcome to the neighborhood.
Thanks.
Who believed in Steve Comrie before Steve did?
I think my grandfather. I was the first grandchild. I was the oldest, firstborn. And my grandfather and my father had a very difficult relationship. I think my grandfather wanted to show that he could be a pretty good guy to somebody, and he picked me. So
Yeah.
there I was. I would visit with him at his upholstery shop. He would take me with him to a bar where he had his buddies, and we played pool together. And so my grandfather was just this old guy who just actually doted on me. And as a young man, just developing, I had a great relationship with my grandfather. He passed away when I was 14, that same year. And that was also a pivotal event for me, because my father wasn't the kind of man who could be my mentor or my champion. He just wasn't there for me.
Right.
But my grandfather was. He passed away.
The thing that you and I have talked about a lot is Afghanistan. How in the world did you get to Afghanistan?
I was looking for work, and my friend Dave Reed offered me a position as a general manager of a TV station in California. Many years later, I find Dave ended up in Turkey running operations there for Fox Television, but he also met with some young freedom fighters. I call them freedom fighters because they truly were dedicated to devoting their lives, giving their lives if necessary, to build a television channel in Afghanistan that would taunt the Taliban. So while Dave was meeting with these people, I'm keeping in touch over the years, though we hadn't worked together for a long time, recognized that he was in Afghanistan. I emailed him. I said, get your butt out of there. We don't want you there. You shouldn't be there. And he said, no, Steve, he says, you would probably be the only guy who might understand how important it is, what I'm doing. He says, I think I'm going to stay. I asked Dave again, why would you do that? He said, these young people need me. They need what I can do to help them. I believe in them, and I can't leave them. I was touched by that. And knowing Dave as well as I do, and owing him for getting me a really good job in television, I felt somewhat obligated to help Dave. My wife said to me, while Dave is over there, you know what he's doing, I bet you'll go and join him. And I said, no, I wouldn't do that. She says, well, if you think you should go and join him, I'll back you on it. The next day, Dave asked me, he said, look, it sounds crazy and it's dangerous, but if you're the only person I can think of might be willing to come here and help me because I do need help. So with Melissa's already approval, some people say she's trying to get rid of me.
Yeah.
But she wasn't. I think Melissa felt strongly, like I did, that given an opportunity to help someone who has helped you, Dave helped me, given the opportunity to do something that is meaningful and consequential, and to be able to, in a way, I'd always had a fearless element to my life, willing to become different, finding my own way, moving my family time after time to get to the next thing. I thought this was an opportunity to give something back. And even though I believed in Dave, I also believed if I get there and things are really bad, I'll grab Dave and bring him home. So on January 18th, 2010, I flew into Kabul in the middle of the night on a landing strip that had no lights. That same day, around 10 a.m., as I was being introduced to the staff of the new television station, standing in the parking lot out in front of a building, a suicide bomber approached our gate at the compound and detonated.
Whoa.
So there I was, my very first few hours in Afghanistan, seeing for myself what really happens in a war zone like that, knowing that the people I was about to work with were already targets of the Taliban for what they were about to do.
And you're poking the bear.
Yeah.
I mean, big time.
Well, these were a group of 20-something young men. One of them had been to university in Tehran. Another had been in journalism school in Egypt. And their families were well enough off to send their boys off to other places to get them out of the war zone.
Right.
But these young men were so courageous, they said, no, we're coming back to make a difference. They could have gone into politics or done other things, but with the support of their families, the financial support and the moral support, they were prepared to take on the Taliban in this new way that didn't exist in Afghanistan. At the time, 2010, most of Afghanistan had no electricity. Most people didn't have television sets because the Taliban would kill your family if they saw a dish on your roof.
Oh my.
So television hadn't developed there the way it had in other countries. And especially some television made by Afghans for Afghans, it had to be done from scratch.
There's one story you've told me before, the story about the tie.
The tie. Dave and I were invited to the home, the parents of young Asil. Asil was a young boy, a producer. We liked him a lot. He was one of those spark plug personalities. He wanted to create things, he wanted to learn. He just happened to be a very important part of the team that we were working with. And one day he said, my father would like to invite you to come to our home for dinner. Well, traveling through Kabul at night for dinner is something we shouldn't do.
Yeah.
Afghans don't do it. But we felt really inspired and felt confident that we could accept this invitation. So we took a little car that we had, and our cars weren't armored, they were just regular Toyotas. Right. We were introduced to his father and his brother, and his mother and two young sisters. They'd prepared this beautiful meal for us. And so the SEAL's father wanted to show us his appreciation for all we were doing to help a SEAL get a good education, learn how to do things. His father was a prosecutor for the city of Kabul. He worked for the government. A SEAL had told us that his father, they had a very humble apartment. His father was intrigued. His father didn't speak English. But what we learned from a SEAL was his father was different than all of the other prosecutors. All of the other prosecutors had cars and drivers. A SEAL's father rode a bicycle to work. A SEAL's father's household income was about $600 a month. And that was well paid because the average Afghan earns about $150 a month. Wow. But it was nothing compared to the other prosecutors. The other prosecutors had nice homes and they had security. But his father was different because his father would not accept the corruption. A SEAL knew that with Dave and I, we would not tolerate corruption. Even though that's the way everything is done, we'd impressed upon a lot of our young people that the way to do things is to do it without the corruption. His father was that kind of man, and his father struggled because he was the one who would fight without accepting corruption. Well, we went through the meal. We had a SEAL did a lot of translation. We got to find out a lot of wonderful things about his family. But as we were leaving, and his father dressed in traditional Afghan clothes, which is it's a simple shirt with a couple of buttons in the front, comes down to about the knee, and then matching pants, and they're usually made out of a lightweight material. Right. It's kind of their Sunday best. Okay. But he left the room and came back in wearing, like you are, a vest, a three-piece suit, a beautiful brown suit with a chalk stripe. He looked very dapper. And I said, Asil, this is amazing. What? He says, Mr. Steve, my father wanted to show you his respect for you. He has one Western suit. So he went in, he put it on, and he wants you to know that how much he admires you. And this Western suit is his way of honoring you. And we were very touched. But I looked at the tie, and he had a burgundy colored tie. But on that tie was something very stark, very stunning. You know, us Latter-day Saint people, we have temples all over the world. Here in Salt Lake, downtown temple, you'll find an angel Moroni on top of the spire of the temple. And Moroni is an ancient American prophet. And Moroni is there with the trumpet, pointed to the heavens as he faces to the east. Well, on the tie, I said, Asil, your father's tie is very, very important. He says, yes, Mr. Steve, this is my father's favorite tie. The reason this is my father's favorite tie is because it has the angel Gabriel on the tie. There was Gabriel with the trumpet pointing towards the heavens. And I said, would it be possible for me to get a good close look at his tie? And the SEAL explains to his father, Mr. Steve likes your tie. Can we show it to him? So I took it and I turned it over and said, made in Provo, Utah.
You gotta be kidding.
So somehow, this tie with the angel Moroni that some missionary perhaps or someone else had purchased long ago ended up being gifted to some charity, ended up in a pile that went to Afghanistan. His father was able to pick it out, and he found the angel Gabriel, which to the Muslims is a very, very important symbol. He and I and Dave shared a tear over that. We were so touched. The spirit in the room was so strong. And that confirmed for me that those kind of people are all over the world in all kinds of different situations. And all Dave and I could do was go over there and instruct a SEAL and others like him to build a television channel that would taunt the Taliban with good programming. Game shows, news, public affairs. We had the first Oprah of Afghanistan. Her name was Mujda. We had a show called Kabul Debates, where the audience were university students, and on the stage was the Taliban, and an American general, and a politician from Afghanistan. Today, that channel is thriving and doing well. Wow. And our young people have all done fine. So it was a great experience.
I want to thank you very much for sharing your story.
More than happy to do it, Doug. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. You know, we've got some underwriters that want to give you some nice thank you gifts. So, hey,
it's wonderful.
Lovely parting gifts.
Let's take a look.
So, Rustico did this nice little box for us.
Beautiful box.
And so, of course, we've got Custom Journal.
Right. Look on that.
All
Very nice.
My name on there. It's
Got
beautiful.
your name, okay. Got a copper pen.
Pen, awesome. Copper pen.
The folks from Taylor Cooperative are going to make you a custom shirt.
Oh, I know. This place is gorgeous, of course.
Okay. And of course, you know, I love my hats from JW Custom Hats. So we're going to hook you up and they're going to make you a custom hat.
JW hat. That's exactly what I need.
Now, I know you don't drink, but you know, we got the folks from Ogden's own distillery, and so we'll just donate this. You know, here's the thing we want people to remember. Stories have power. They help us understand. With another entry into Jessop's Journal, I'm Doug Jessop, ABC4 News.